Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The Adventure of the Speckled Band. Chapter 1. For many years, I've written about the mysteries Sherlock Holmes and I have solved. These stories are sometimes sad, sometimes funny, but always interesting. Holmes loved solving unique mysteries. He didn't care about money. If the mystery was odd, he was happy. I remember a mystery about the Speckled Band. I couldn't write about it earlier because I promised a lady I wouldn't. But now I can tell the story. People have talked a lot about Dr. Grimesby Roylott's death. I want to share the real story. In April 1883, one morning, Holmes woke me up. It was very early, only 7:50. I was surprised and a bit annoyed. I like to wake up at the same time every day. Holmes looked at me and said,
"Sorry, Watson. Mrs. Hudson, then me, we both woke up early. I didn't mean to wake you so early, Watson. But we have an early visitor."
Rubbing my eyes, I replied, "What's happened? Is everything okay?"
Are you enjoying this story? Let us know by tapping the like button. Thank you.
Holmes pointed downstairs.
"There's a young lady. She seems worried. She has a story to tell. Do you want to join me and listen?"
The idea of a new mystery made me jump out of bed. "Of course, I'm coming," I said with a smile. In no time, we were downstairs. We sat ready to hear about the new mystery from the worried-looking lady. And that was the start of another incredible adventure. The lady was dressed in black with a big veil hiding her face. She stood up as we came in.
"Hello, madam,"
Holmes greeted with a smile.
"I'm Sherlock Holmes, and this is Dr. Watson. You can trust him. We're here to help."
He then noticed the lit fireplace.
"Ah, Mrs. Hudson lit the fire. Come, sit by it. You look cold. Would you like some coffee?"
Soon after, Mrs. Hudson came in to get our coffee orders. The lady lifted her veil.
"I'm not cold, Mr. Holmes. I'm scared."
I looked at her. She looked very tired and worried. Her face was pale, and her hair had gray strands, even though she looked quite young. Holmes, with his sharp eyes, would have seen all these and more.
"Don't worry.
He told her.
We're here to help. Did you come by train today?"
She looked surprised but nodded.
"You have a train ticket in your glove,"
he added. She looked at her hand, and yes, there was a ticket. I could tell she was amazed by how Holmes knew this. Holmes explained.
"Your jacket has mud on it, the kind you get from a dog cart. So, you must have traveled in one to the station."
"You're right.
She replied, seeming more relaxed.
I came from Surrey."
Then she looked upset again.
"I need your help, Mr. Holmes. A friend, Mrs. Farintosh, told me about you. I'm in big trouble."
Holmes remembered Mrs. Farintosh and the case of the opal tiara.
"That was before we met, Watson,"
he said to me.
Don't miss a single chapter of our extraordinary stories. Hit the subscribe button now.
The lady looked a bit annoyed.
"I can't pay you now, but I will be able to soon. I'm getting married."
Holmes assured her.
"Don't worry about payment. Just tell us what's going on. What are you scared of?"
She took a deep breath.
"I'm not sure what I'm scared of, but I feel something is wrong. I need you to help me."
Holmes nodded.
"Please, tell us everything."
"I'm Helen Stoner.
She began.
I live with my stepfather, Dr. Grimesby Roylott. Our family was once rich and had a big house, Stoke Moran. But now, we have very little money left."
She continued.
"My stepfather studied medicine. He went to India and had a big doctor's practice there. He married my mother when my twin sister Julia and I were very young. But in India, He got very angry one day and hurt someone. He had to go to jail. When he came back to England, he was a very different man.
Holmes listened without showing much feeling. I always wondered how he stayed so calm. I was still getting to know him then. Chapter 2. Miss Sterner went on with her story.
My mum had some money. After she passed away, she wanted us to get part of it when we got married. But soon after, she died in a train accident. Then Dr. Roylott, our stepdad, moved us to an old house called Stoke Moran. At first, things were okay. But after some time, Dr. Roylott began acting very differently. He stayed indoors all the time and got angry very easily. The village people became scared of him because he was strong and liked to fight.
She added,
He also has a few strange friends who camp in our garden. And he has some big wild animals.
Curious, I asked. Wild animals? She said,
Yes, from his time in India. He has a cheetah and a baboon. They walk around our garden.
Mrs. Hudson came in with coffee just as Miss Sterner talked about the animals. After serving us, I asked, because Dr. Roylott gets angry often, do people not want to work at your house? She said,
Yes. Julia and I had to do most housework. After seeing how Dr. Roylott acted, workers left quickly. Sometimes, we felt happy only when we visited our aunt. But then Julia died. After that, it's just been me and him.
Holmes looked very interested and asked her to explain more. Miss Sterner said,
I made a simple drawing of our house to help you see.
She showed us a paper.
This is how our house looks, she said, pointing to each room. This one's mine, that's Julia's, and that's Dr. Roylott's.
Holmes and I looked at the drawing closely. Miss Sterner then said,
On the night Julia died, she told me something strange. She heard a whistling sound at night. I didn't hear it, but she said it happened often around 3 in the morning. We thought maybe it was the campers in our garden. That night, like always, I locked my door, and I heard Julia do the same.
Holmes asked.
You lock your doors every night.
She said,
Yes, because of the wild animals. We felt safer that way.
I thought living like that must be scary. Miss Sterner sounded sad as she said, 20.8 that same night, I felt worried. There was a big storm outside. Suddenly, I heard Julia scream loudly. I ran out and heard a whistle and a metal sound. I saw Julia looking very scared. She fell down and made a loud, scary sound. She stopped talking, looking very upset. Chapter 3. The woman before us looked really scared as she told her story. I felt so bad for her, thinking about how much she had gone through these past 2 years. Holmes was eager to know more.
What did she say?
I too was keen to hear, and I tried to comfort her by placing my hand on hers. Hesitating a little, she said,
She cried out, Oh my God, Helen. It was the band. The Speckled band.
She then talked about how she saw her stepfather, the doctor, come out of his room. He tried to help Julia, but it was too late. Holmes inquired.
Are you certain about hearing the whistle and the metal noise?
She nodded.
Yes, I told the same at the inquest, but the storm might have confused me.
And was your sister wearing her normal clothes?
Holmes questioned.
No, she was in her nightdress. She had a used matchstick and a matchbox.
Holmes continued.
And what did the investigation reveal about the cause of death?
She explained that despite a thorough check, no cause was found. Everything was locked from the inside, and Julia was alone without any injuries.
How do you believe she died?
Miss Sterner hesitated.
I think fear killed her. But I don't know what could have scared her so much.
Holmes asked.
Any idea what she meant by speckled band?
She thought for a moment.
Maybe it was her fear speaking, or maybe she was talking about some men on our grounds who sometimes wear dotted scarves.
Holmes wondered why she was seeking help 2 years after the event. She shared that she was getting married soon, but recent events had made her scared. She mentioned hearing the same whistle in the house and how she had been moved to Julia's old room. Holmes asked if she had shared everything with us. But then he pointed out some bruises on her wrist. It was clear her stepfather had been rough with her. Holmes thought deeply for a while. Breaking the silence, he asked if we could visit Stoke Moran without her stepfather knowing. She confirmed he would be away. Holmes turned to me.
Watson, are you okay with visiting Stoke Moran today?
I was intrigued and replied, "Of course I am." Miss Sterner said she would be heading back, and Holmes offered her breakfast, but she declined. She seemed a bit better after sharing her story. As she left, Holmes asked for my opinion. I admitted I found the whole thing creepy. We discussed the various mysterious elements, the whistles, the vagabonds, and the speckled band. Suddenly, the door burst open. A tall man with deep-set eyes, looking quite angry, entered.
"Which one of you is Holmes?"
He demanded. Holmes calmly replied, identifying himself. The man was Dr. Grimesby Roylott of Stoke Moran. He seemed furious about Miss Stoner's visit. Holmes responded with a cool wit, which only seemed to make Roylott angrier. In a show of strength, Roylott bent an iron poker from the fireplace. After he left, Holmes straightened it, chuckling at Roylott's attempt to intimidate him. I hoped Miss Sterner would be safe after this. Holmes, not really bothered, decided we should have breakfast. After that, he wanted to gather more information on the case. Chapter 4. That morning, I was in my room busy with my patient's paperwork. When the clock showed it was almost 1, I heard my friend Holmes come in. I finished what I was doing and went to meet him in our common room. He had a blue paper filled with his quick handwriting. He started.
This paper talks about Miss Stoner's mother's last wishes. The money that was left is now only £750 every year. If Miss Stoner or her sister got married, they would get £250 each year. This means Dr. Roylott would get less money. It's clear he didn't want them to marry.
I thought about this new fact, understanding Dr. Roylott's possible reason for not wanting the marriage. Holmes added,
Julia's passing means she won't marry, so Dr. Roylott doesn't lose his money.
He then looked at me.
We need to hurry, Watson. Dr. Roylott knows we're looking into this. Let's go to Waterloo Station. Oh, and bring your small gun with you. It might help if things get tough.
We took a train to Leatherhead, and from there, we hired a ride for 5 miles. It was a lovely day, feeling like spring was near. The sun was shining, and young green plants were starting to grow. The beauty of the day felt strange because of our serious task. Holmes was quiet, thinking deeply until he suddenly got my attention.
Look over there,
he said. In the distance, a big house was visible behind some trees.
Is that Stoke Moran?
Holmes asked our driver.
"Yes, sir.
The man said.
That's Dr. Roylott's home, and the small houses there are the village.
He showed us a shortcut to the house.
That lady walking there is Miss Stoner."
After we paid our ride, Holmes greeted her.
Good afternoon, Miss Stoner.
She looked a bit more relaxed than in the morning and gave a small smile.
I've been waiting for you. Dr. Roylott is away and won't be back soon.
Holmes quickly told her about our earlier meeting with Dr. Roylott. She looked worried.
He knows about our plan.
Holmes reassured her.
Don't worry. Just stay safe and lock your doors tonight. If he acts mean, we will take you to a safe place.
Then he added,
We don't have much time. Can you show us the rooms you talked about?
We followed her to the big grey house. The house looked old, like a big crab. One side of it was broken and seemed not safe to live in. The middle part looked okay, and the right side looked new and lived in. Some parts were under repair, but there were no workers around. Holmes walked back and forth on the messy garden grass, deeply studying the windows.
Was this your room?
He pointed to the one with the building supports.
The middle one was your sister's, and the closest to the house's heart is Dr. Roylott's room.
Miss Stoner replied.
Exactly, but I sleep in the middle room now.
Holmes looked puzzled.
I don't understand why your room is being repaired.
She responded.
I don't think it needed fixing. He probably moved me as a reason.
Holmes, even thought, said.
So, these 3 rooms are connected by one hallway.
He remembered the layout Miss Stoner had shown us. She confirmed.
Yes, with tiny windows that no one could climb through.
Holmes asked her to shut her room windows to check if they could be forced open. He wanted to make sure if someone from inside could be a suspect. After trying, he found them impossible to open. Using his magnifying glass, he studied the strong metal parts of the windows. He scratched his head.
It seems tricky. It's almost impossible for someone to enter if these windows are locked. Let's look inside.
Inside, the room was simple. I tried to see what Holmes might see. A big room with a warm hearth, no recent fires though. There was a bed, chairs, a dressing table, and a carpet. The room felt quite old and simple. I could feel the sad memory of Julia's passing as we looked around. Holmes sat and carefully scanned the room. I tried to do the same but couldn't see anything new. Holmes pointed to a thick rope hanging beside the bed.
Where does this bell lead to?
To the housekeeper's room.
Miss Stoner said.
It looks quite new.
She agreed.
It was added just a few years back.
He questioned.
Why did your sister want it?
She shook her head.
No, we didn't need it. We managed things on our own.
Holmes then suddenly threw himself to the ground, searching every bit of the floor and walls using his magnifying glass. He stopped beside the bed and tugged on the bell rope.
It's fake.
He was surprised.
This isn't connected to any bell. It's just hanging near that small vent.
I was surprised. I didn't see that vent earlier. Holmes seemed puzzled.
Why have a vent that doesn't bring fresh air? It should open outside.
Miss Stoner noted.
That was added around the same time as the bell.
Holmes sighed.
Fake bells and odd vents. Miss Stoner, let's now look at Dr. Roylott's room.
We both followed him to the next room. Chapter 5. Dr. Roylott's room was bigger than his stepdaughter's. It had simple furniture, a bed, some books, and a couple of chairs. There was a large metal safe, which made me wonder what might be inside. Holmes seemed to have the same thought as he approached it. What's kept inside this? He asked Miss Stoner. She replied,
My stepfather's work papers. I saw inside it years ago. It had many papers.
Holmes pointed at a milk saucer on the safe and said,
But why is this here?
Miss Stoner looked surprised.
We don't have a cat. We have a cheetah and a baboon. But a small amount of milk wouldn't be enough for a cheetah.
Holmes then closely inspected a wooden chair and seemed pleased with his findings. Just as we thought he was done, something else caught his eye. It was a dog leash tied in a loop hanging on the bed's corner. Holmes looked at me.
What do you think of this, Watson?
It looks like a regular leash, but I'm not sure why it's tied like that, I responded. Holmes sighed heavily.
When clever people use their minds for bad things, it's dangerous.
With a final glance around the room, he left. Outside, Holmes paced around the garden, lost in thought. Miss Stoner and I waited patiently, not wanting to disturb him. After some time, he turned to Miss Stoner.
Miss Stoner, you must follow my advice carefully.
She nodded.
Of course, I trust you.
Holmes went on.
We need to stay in your room tonight.
Both Miss Stoner and I were surprised. He explained,
That's the village pub over there, right?
pointing at a distant building. Miss Stoner confirmed.
Yes, the Crown. And you can see my windows from there.
Holmes gave detailed instructions. She was to lock herself in, pretending to have a headache. Once Dr. Roylott was in his room, she should place a lamp at her window as a signal for us. Then, she should go and sleep in her old room.
We'll be in your room, trying to uncover the mystery behind the noise.
Holmes concluded. Seeing the conviction in Holmes' words, Miss Stoner asked.
You know what happened to my sister, don't you?
Holmes paused.
I have some ideas, but I need solid evidence.
She asked.
Was she scared to death?
Holmes replied.
No, I believe something specific caused her death. But we should leave now before Dr. Roylott returns. It's important to follow my instructions for your safety.
I added, stay strong, and gently touched Miss Stoner's arm. With that, we headed to the inn. From our upstairs room at the inn, we could see the grand house clearly. As evening approached, we observed Dr. Roylott return home. His tall frame was noticeable even from our distance. When the young lad driving the carriage struggled with the old gates, Dr. Roylott's anger was unmistakable. He shouted loudly and menacingly waved his fist at the boy. Soon after, the lights of the house lit up, revealing a warm glow from one of the rooms. Holmes spoke, addressing me.
Watson, I'm concerned about tonight. There's a hint of danger, and I worry for you.
But can I help in any way? I questioned.
Definitely.
He answered. Determined? I replied. Then I'll be with you. But if you're speaking of risks, you must have observed something significant in those rooms. Holmes admitted.
I perhaps concluded more from what we saw, but I didn't actually see more than you.
I noticed the bell pull, but its purpose is a mystery to me.
And the small vent?
Holmes asked. Yes, I saw it. But it's so tiny, not even a small rat could fit through. Holmes explained.
Before we even reached Stoke Moran, I suspected we'd find a vent.
Surprised, I asked, Holmes, how? He recounted.
Remember Miss Stoner's comment about the smell of Dr. Roylott's cigar from the other room? It indicated a connection between the two rooms. But it must have been small, or else it would have been discussed during the investigation of her sister's death.
Still puzzled, I responded, but what's harmful in that? Holmes connected the dots.
The vent, the cord, and the lady's death all happened at the same time. Doesn't that strike you as odd?
I still can't see the full picture. Was there something unusual about the bed? Holmes pointed out.
The bed was fixed to the floor. Ever heard of such a thing?
I confessed I hadn't. Holmes concluded.
The bed's position, relative to the vent and the bell pull, was always fixed.
Feeling the weight of Holmes's words, I remarked, I'm starting to grasp the gravity of what you're implying. We're on the brink of uncovering a very calculated crime. Holmes nodded.
Indeed. When a doctor commits a crime, it's particularly terrifying. They have the skill and the knowledge. Tonight might reveal more than we anticipate. But for now, let's relax and divert our thoughts to happier things.
Chapter 6. Holmes and I settled down for dinner in our room. The meal was decent. Afterwards, we either shared our thoughts or skimmed the newspaper. We kept our window curtains open. By 9 at night, the big house was all dark. Time passed slowly. At around 11, a single light turned on. Holmes got up and said,
That's our sign. The light is from the middle window.
We went downstairs and told the hotel owner we were meeting a friend and might be out late. The night air was cold as we walked towards the firelight. Getting into the house was easy because some walls were broken. As we got close to the window, a strange animal jumped out from the plants, moved around quickly, and then went away into the dark. Did you see that? Holmes held my hand, laughed softly, and said,
It's just a baboon.
Thinking of Dr. Roylott's weird pets, I became more scared of another animal, a cheetah. I wanted to get into the room quickly. Inside, we removed our shoes. Holmes turned down the light and set it on a table. In a very soft voice, he said,
We need to be quiet. Noise could be bad for us.
I nodded, understanding. He added,
We have to sit in the dark. He might see the light from the small window.
I had many questions, but I waited. Holmes said,
Don't sleep. It's important for our safety. Have your gun ready. I'll sit near the bed, and you can sit on the chair.
I put my gun close. Holmes had a long stick, some matches, and a small candle ready. He turned off the light, and everything was dark. Sometimes, we heard birds or the scary sound of the cheetah outside. A far clock told us the time every hour. When it was 3 in the morning, a small light came from the vent, like from a candle. I became alert, and so did Holmes. I reached for my gun, ready for anything. The room smelled like burnt oil. Someone had turned on a light in the next room, making it not too bright. I heard a soft noise, then nothing. I tried to breathe quietly and stayed very still, so they wouldn't know we were there. I felt like a long time passed. I was very alert. Then I heard a sound like water boiling. Suddenly, Holmes stood up, lit a match, and hit the bell rope with his stick.
Watson, did you see?
He called out. But I didn't see anything. When Holmes lit the match, I'd heard a soft whistle like Miss Stoner talked about. But the light made it hard for me to see. I just saw Holmes looking very scared. He stopped hitting the rope and was looking at a small window. Then a very loud scream filled the room. It was so loud I thought the whole town heard it. I will never forget that sound. Holmes and I looked at each other, trying to understand what happened. What was that? I finally asked.
It's done.
Holmes said quietly.
Maybe it's better this way. Let's go to Dr. Roylott's room. Bring your gun.
We walked to the room with our light. Even though Holmes knocked on the door, no one answered. Taking a deep breath, Holmes opened the door, and I got my gun ready, not knowing what we'd find. There was a light in the room pointing at a big metal box with its door open. Near it, Dr. Roylott was sitting. He had his night clothes on and a dog chain on his legs. But the weirdest thing was the brown and yellow band on his head. Holmes whispered,
The pattern band.
I walked closer and the band moved. It lifted its diamond-shaped head and neck, which expanded like a hood. Then we understood. It was a snake. Chapter 7.
That's a swamp adder.
Holmes remarked.
It's the most dangerous snake from India. He's died shortly after its bite. He's been hurt by his own plan.
I stared at the snake, feeling very scared. Everything started to become clear. Dr. Roylott was truly a wicked man. Holmes gently picked up the leash from Roylott's lap.
We should return this snake to where it belongs, then make sure Miss Stoner is safe and tell the police.
Holmes skillfully tied the snake with the leash, kept it away from himself, placed it into the big iron box, and closed it. We noticed Miss Stoner, awakened by the noise, standing nearby, looking scared.
You're safe now, Miss Stoner.
Holmes assured her, gently holding her hand, which was a kind gesture from him.
Sadly, your stepfather has passed away.
She looked shocked but remained quiet.
We need to tell the police.
Holmes stated.
If Watson can stay with you, perhaps prepare some tea. I'll go to the inn and ask someone for help.
I agreed, and we guided her to the kitchen, where it was a bit warm. Once she was settled and I began making the tea, Holmes left. After some quiet moments, she asked,
What happened?
I responded, I'll let Holmes tell you all of it. But know this, your stepfather had bad intentions towards you. But he's gone now. You're safe. She seemed more at ease, drinking her tea, waiting for Holmes. When he came back, I offered him some tea, but he declined and sat across from Miss Stoner.
Dr. Roylott had more than just a baboon and a cheetah.
He started.
He also had a snake from India, called a swamp adder.
Miss Stoner looked at him with fear.
The most dangerous snake.
She whispered. Holmes went on.
After our chat at Baker Street, I had a guess, but I was wrong. The noises outside and your sister's use of the word band made me think differently. But once we saw the rooms, it was obvious that nothing could come in from the door or window. I saw the air hole and the fake bell pull and realized they were clues. I also saw that the bed was fixed to the ground, right under the air hole. So, the bell pull must have been a way for something to come from the hole to the bed. Maybe a snake? We knew he had brought animals from India. He hid the snake from us. Its bite kills quickly, and no one can find it afterwards. Roylott, having been a doctor in India, knew this. He might have even treated people bitten by this snake. A very keen-eyed person would need to spot the small bite marks. Most wouldn't even think of a snake bite.
Miss Stoner looked both sad and shocked. It seemed she couldn't believe that her stepfather would do such a thing just for money. Holmes added,
He couldn't let the snake stay in the room. They'd find it. He trained the snake to come back when he whistled, maybe because of the milk. And I saw marks on the chair. He used it to reach the air hole.
Miss Stoner said.
I was lucky the first night. I wonder why the snake didn't bite me.
Holmes replied,
He wasn't in a hurry. The snake might not always bite, but he was sure it would before you got married.
I added, and a loud sound you heard? He kept the snake locked in the big box. She looked at both of us.
I'm so grateful to you both, Mr. Holmes and Dr. Watson. You took a risk tonight. Did you wait for the snake?
Holmes nodded.
Yes, and I hit it, making it go back. Knowing what might come was our advantage. My hits upset it, so it attacked the first person it saw, its owner.
Soon, morning came. Once Miss Stoner packed her things, we helped her to the train station. She took a train to her aunt's house in Harrow. We informed the police about everything and then headed to Baker Street. The strange case was now solved. The official reason for Dr. Roylott's death was that he died from his risky pet. Only Holmes, Miss Stoner, and I knew the full story. I hoped Miss Stoner would soon forget this sad chapter, especially once she starts her new life with her husband. The end. Have you enjoyed this story? Like and subscribe to our channel now to unlock fresh tales and level up your English skills.